Warriors Unite! Back with another episode of Bigger Warriors 2 in the 1% Club. I figured I'd do another one this morning. I know we did one last night, but I had a few extra minutes here, and I said, I went back and did a lot of the shout-outs and tried to catch up as much as I could, and also with topics too. So we're going to talk about something that Brandon Wimberley, actually, our viewer of Brandon Wimberley actually sent to me, talking about Afterlife. But I'm going to talk about this more in general terms of why do we do semen retention and keep our energy. Let's do some shout outs first. Julian 7058, thank you. Dreams, wet dreams during SR. He's asking questions. And I'm going back from the recent ones to the past ones for the last few weeks, just to catch up a little bit. And if I miss somebody, please, not trying to obviously slight anybody. I'm trying to just kind of catch up with the shout outs that I have, but I am going to miss some people, and I apologize for that. So Julian 7058. Releasing before SR, and now all of a sudden, now with SR, wet dreams. This, and I've talked about wet dreams before. Part of the issue is that I don't count it as a release. I think Satan, again, the evil one's trying to kind of get back at and trying to get you back into the rhythm, into what you're used to. Your body's reacting to that. I would not count a lot of that stuff, especially during dreams and things like that. I will tell you, and I'll talk about this at some point as well, is that I think when you're on retention, you start dreaming a lot more again. A lot of times you're focusing just on, women and temptation, things like that. Once you get out of the realm, you're now focusing on other kinds of things as well. So thank you, Julian, for the comment. Stevenmreinhardt, thank you, my friend. That guy, thank you. Johnnie, thank you. Julian Baughman, thank you. And Smashing 2 Scoops, thank you as well. All right, so, and I'll catch up with a lot more as we go through. So at 2 minutes here, let's talk about this comment from Branden Wimberley, and also talking about semen retention and why do we keep energy. All right, so Brian, it's a great, Brandon, it's a great comment, a great idea here. So let's talk about why we do all of this. And it will flow into what we're talking about with the afterlife and things like that as well. So we want to, as human beings, we want to be the best human beings we can become. I don't think anybody has doubt with that. Now, things may distract us, may put us down, may give us depression, may have us lose hope, all those things. But in the long run, we try to do the best that we can. And life has to be something that we kind of move through and decide how do we actually do that. Now, if you go back to the law of physics, and I've taught physics before at the high school level, and when you look at this, you realize that everything is made of energy. We talked about how energy and wisdom is important. We talked about that before. So your life, everything around you, is all energy. And so we talk about energy as it cannot be destroyed. It has to be transferred to something else. It moves to something else. Whether it can't be destroyed, it can't be created, it's just there. And so a lot of things that we've had that is created within us, like children, babies, are created through sense of energy. And so you have your energy, you give that to the woman has her energy, and all of a sudden you have, you have children. Now, you could talk about this and ideas of eggs and sperms and as well, but it's the same kind of thing. They're all made of energy. And so the energy you keep is important. And so as we talk about energy, it's important to focus on keeping your energy. And so when we talk about why we do semen retention, why we keep our energy, the biggest issue really is the fact that we're trying to live the best, highest value life that we can live. And so energy is something that is really, really important in that. God has given you energy. Obviously, if you have enough energy to create a child, you have a powerhouse full of energy. And the longer you keep that, as we talked about before and other types of things we've done, the longer you will keep that power. Obviously, in this society, and I think it's the evil one playing a huge factor in this, satanic types of things want you to release. This is why the pornography is out there. This is why you have all the brainwashing that people do to try to get you to release, to become weaker, to become, in male's case, more feminine, and in the female's case, more masculine. All these things are happening to try to make the population weaker. Perhaps for invasion, perhaps for lots of different reasons, depopulation. There could be lots of things out there. But the thing is you're looking at this, the key thing is to focus on is the idea that you are full of energy. And that energy, if allowed to expand and transmute, is unbelievable. I believe that as time has gone on, we've seen a lot less people who practice retention. This is why we're 1%. Perhaps that's why people back in the biblical times lived a lot longer. I don't know, but all I know is that you could, and I saw this with the book, and Kemmler's book, and the Ancient Secrets of the Fountain of Youth, people live a long time when you practice this. And so what happens is that you look younger and you end up, living longer. You don't, the aging process is still going to be the aging process. And the chakras are the chakras, and however you want to believe in that. But the thing is, you're eventually kind of pushing off, you're kind of youthing, you're getting younger as time goes on. But again, the whole idea that you're using semen retention is for your health benefits, but more importantly, you're trying to get closer to your Creator, your God. And so we talk about the afterlife that Brandon talks about, and why are we keeping our energy? Well, everything affects your energy. So we're not the only ones that have the energy. Things around us have energy. People have energy. Animals have energy. Children have energy. Women, men, all kinds of things. We all have energy. Houses have energy. Everything is made of matter, which is energy. So when you think of it in terms of all energy, you realize it cannot be destroyed, it cannot be created. So even though visually you may see a house being knocked down, all that's really happening is that energy within that house, and those bricks and mortars and things, are just being transferred to something else. It's almost like you have an ice cube and it's frozen. You had a concentration of those atoms and things and freezing it, and now you put some heat to it, it will melt, and then it will evaporate. So where is it going? It's just transferring into another form. So you can't really create it, so what ends up happening then is that you are the same way. Now, if you continue to keep those energy forces moving, we call them chakras, energy forces, whatever you want to call them, and you do that through keeping your energy and exercising, and especially Kemmler's Fountain of Youth exercises or other types of exercises, you can actually kind of stay or look younger and stay healthier longer. And as a result of that, then when we talk about your abundance in life, which is what I think the Lord has talked about, your abundance comes from the fact that you can have an abundance life. You will attract things. So for example, when we look at keeping your life force, keeping your energy, you attract things to you. Why couldn't you attract money to you? And I've seen that happen lots of times, that all of a sudden, you're on a long streak, and now you get a lot of people that you meet, you get opportunities, you have different things going on, because you're not just focusing on women, you're focusing on other things. And of course, then women will come after you more because you're not focusing on them. You're not in lust. So when we talk about the sins, perhaps the sins are just these things you're focusing on too much. And because of those things, it drags you away from all this abundance. It's almost like you're stopping your lifeline, or you're losing your lifeline, because you're releasing a lot and you're focusing on lust. And so now you try to do all these addictive behaviors because they go along with that whole lustful type of thing. And so now all of a sudden you're focusing on all the behaviors that become very self-destructive. On the other hand, if you're learning how to control your energy and why you're keeping the energy, and you understand this, and that everything is gold to you, you should not even edge or anything like that. So we talk about not even edging, or you should be in what I call the monk mode. The monk mode is basically just focusing on everything but women. And I know that's a very difficult thing, especially when you guys are in your 20s and 30s and 40s, but that's something to strive for. That's something to look at. I don't think the Lord ever wanted us to have lust in our eyes, or lust for women, or any sort of sinful things, adultery types of things. I think the Lord wanted us to live His purpose and focus on Him and focus on what He's doing. And retention moves you in that direction. I think I've seen it, and I saw some things on brahmacharya over the years, and looking at Sufism and all the wise people, I call them, over time, and they focus on the idea that you need to keep your energy, and that brings you closer to the Lord. And because you're focusing on that, you're looking at something that becomes, your strength, something that you can become stronger with, because you're focusing on that thing that God has given you to make yourself stronger. And so as you look at the whole idea of retention and why we do this, we're focusing really on becoming what God intended us to become. And you can say you're creative, because obviously we have a lot of people of different religions that view us. And obviously, to me, in my mind, I think your creator, your God, you're focusing on that. That's an important thing. And so to my mind, that's what's key in this situation. And you realize that you're not the God, and you're not the God. It's something else. Some other being is the God. So the thing is when we look at this, I think that it's important to recognize that as you focus on your energy, you're trying to get closer to that creator, that God, in my case, Lord Jesus Christ. You're trying to get closer to that. As a result of that, your energy then is connecting with things around you that become abundance, things that God has wanted for you and that you want, and then in line with God. So you become more in line with God as I've noticed, as I've retained, and now the things that you wanted before, all those material types of values, images, things like that, you don't want those things anymore. That's what I found over the last 5 years, especially being in monk mode. You don't want those type of things anymore. You want to focus on things that will get you closer to God in a relationship that you want and the purpose that He wants. And because of that, then you're doing the things that will do that. So now, if you're going to use self-control to not and retain for a long period of time, and using that as a guide, well, then you're going to do some other things, right? You're going to take cold showers more often. You're going to try to have the right diets and eat the right types of food. You're going to try to dress better. You're going to try to, exercise, those things. And even at 64 years old, I love doing this kind of stuff, and I'm more aware and looking forward to get in best shape that I can get in, to become the best person I can become. But it's because of the retention. It's because of that relationship with God, trying to become better and better. So as we look at this, it's really kind of a key type of thing. And I think, talking about the afterlife, well, once again, you're not going to be created. You can't be created. You can't be destroyed. So once again, you're going to go ahead and transfer into something. And again, we talk about heaven and hell and those type of things. And heaven, obviously, you're transferring into something. And I've seen cases where relatives and people have passed away. And I've seen warriors. I've seen something going into the air. I'm not sure what, I'm assuming that's a soul. So again, when you see someone pass away, they're in the casket, and that's not them anymore. They look like their body, but it's only a body. So if you think in that terms, there's something else inside of us, almost like a car. We don't know exactly how the car ignites like it does all the time. We have ideas, but the same thing we don't understand about human beings. How do we actually operate? What is it inside of us that once we pass away leaves our body? The physical body can be destroyed, but that's not what the body is inside. So the inside, there's something else there. And that's why we talk of energy and soul and everything, your spirit, all those things are within you. And this is what we're talking about. So that's why it's important to recognize, guys and warriors, that you're really talking about your energy force of life, your life force. Once you lose your life force, it transfers into something else. And perhaps you go into another world. What perhaps we don't know, and there's obviously a lot of people speculate and things like that. Until that happens to you, you won't really know what actually is happening. But what you can do while you're still sitting on this planet and this earth and this situation, this world right now, is be the best you can be in God's and your Creator's purposes, so that you're using your energy for good and you're getting all the abundance. It's almost like a river flowing the correct way, right? You're not going to go against the river all the time. That makes life difficult. But a lot of people do that unnecessarily and even subconsciously by a lot of things they're doing. They do that when they don't try to, retain, when they listen to the media, they listen to everything out there, and they lose themselves, in thinking that, okay, I can handle this. I'm a big shot. I'm sleeping with all these kind of women. I'm partying all the time, or I'm on top making all this kind of money and things like that. But all that is still energy, guys. And eventually, if you're not solid inside, then it will catch up to you. Just a matter of time. And I've seen it happen over and over again. I don't care if you're a multi-millionaire, billionaire, whatever it might be. It will catch up to you from the inside, because again, all that's energy. And at some level, if you're not within your Creator, you're not with your God, you're not with, in my case, Jesus Christ, then all of a sudden, those things will catch up to you, because again, your energy will reflect that and attract things, not attract things, because of those type of things. And eventually, as you get older, you realize this more and more, that what you've got to do is continue to build that strong relationship with your Creator. And this is why we get back to the whole idea of why do we do semen retention? Why do we keep our energy? Your energy attracts things. You got to have the energy, however, to attract things. And so many people in this world, and I'm just talking about more the males, even though it affects a lot of the females too, are just, they're zombies walking around, vampire suckers. They're not really people who are full, right? Because you could see it. You could see it in the way they walk. You could see it in the way they just droop their shoulders. They're losing energy. So you can call that, lack of hope or faith or depression. But I just wonder, and I don't know, obviously, but you wonder, are these people actually releasing all the time? And that may be the cause of a lot of what they're doing. A person who I've seen who is not releasing is a strong person. I've not seen many cases at all where people who are retainers are weak people. I don't think you can do that way, because I think God gives you all that energy. And I know you guys have asked before, and I've seen some comments on this talking about, Elvis Presley. And we'll do one on Elvis pretty soon. But Elvis is probably a good example of where you can start off, and he probably was retaining, right, starting off, but then somehow got involved in things that maybe, kind of strayed away from all that. And maybe that's why he got into all the kind of stuff that at the end, kind of led to his, his demise. That's possible. I don't know. I look at Bela Lugosi, which is an old star of the original Dracula, the one we look of in Dracula and think of Dracula, even back in the old days, back in the 1930s, about 100 years ago. And another one who had great success, and I think was retaining for a long time, but then all of a sudden, as time went on, he struggled because of the whole idea about that. I think that, again, you fall into this temptation. The evil one's always around, and a lot of it starts with your retention. The alcohol, the drugs, the overeating, all that kind of stuff goes with it, but it has to start somewhere, and your most powerful force is your energy inside. And if you lose that, you can lose that well. I think Bruce Lee is a good example. Again, I think someone mentioned it in one of the comments, and we will talk about Bruce Lee and Elvis together. But Bruce Lee had a period of time, and I used to like him as, before doing the movies Enter a Dragon, things like that, I used to like him as Kato when it came to the Green Hornet back in the late 60s, when I liked those shows when I was a kid. And so when you look at this, again, Bruce Lee was tremendous. And I think, again, Did he eventually have trouble releasing near the end? I don't know. I don't know that part, but I do know that he must have practiced retention because he was very strong. You could see he's a strong person within, and you see that. So this is a challenge that we all have. We don't know at one point in time. I mean, Mike Tyson's another good example. When he had 5 years, he was a monster, destroying people in the ring, and within seconds. But then, after 5 years, and he wasn't releasing, he had mentioned that. Muhammad Ali, all these people talk about when they retain, they are just so strong. The trouble is that they get caught. We all have those situations. And temptation hits us, and before we know it, we're releasing, and we're losing our energy. And I think it was Malcolm X, I saw in his autobiography, talking about 12 years you need to go to Christ and God and your Creator. And that could be very true. But those 12 years are not easy. I think I'm in 1,860, 70 days. So I think around 5 years or something like that. I think it was right before the pandemic, something like that. But it's not easy. It's not easy. I still get times. You get into better habits, but you're still struggling, especially when it comes to the monk mode and things like that. So it is an ongoing type of thing that you have to continue to battle with. But again, you're keeping the energy, because energy attracts everything else, and your whole life is really made of energy. So we keep energy that way for now, and then obviously, we want to be in a better spot after this world, and so once again, we do that. The energy goes somewhere as well, and those things are all together. So good comment. I like that, Brandon. That was a good idea. I think, again, if you follow law of physics and you follow just spirits and just knowing the Bible and knowing what happens, you can probably make a guess that there is an afterlife with something, and we're going somewhere. And the key is that you want to be on the right side of things going somewhere. So that's the point I'm making, I guess. Why do we do semen retention? Keep our energy. Obviously, that's the reason. We want to have a good life, abundant life here, and be successful for the Lord in the purpose that He wants us to, and then in hopes then He will then allow us to be with Him after that point in time. So, all right, my friends, enough of this. I hope you got something out of it. Again, thank you, Brandon, for your comment. I will try to cover Elvis in the next couple. I think Wet Dreams we'll try to do next with Knowledge Harvester. Has some good comments about that. So we'll talk about that next time as well. All right, so until next time, guys, I hope you guys have a nice weekend. If I get a chance to do one tomorrow, I will. If not, we'll do one early next week. 2 things I always leave you guys with. First, every day is a new day to a great warrior. And you guys are all great warriors. Continue to fight, battle on. Number 2, guys, we always have to continue to remember that Satan is around the door. We talked about that with Elvis and all the people we talked about. You never know when temptation is going to be hitting you. You never know when things go bad. You never know when things hit you and stressed out. And you always got to continue to keep your helmet on. You got to keep your chest plate on. You got to continue to battle on! God bless you guys. Have a great day.